In this video, we're going to be looking at the top 10 things to look at with the Losi DB Pro before you ever drive this vehicle. Welcome everyone, my name is Troy, this is Roadside RC. On this channel, you'll tend to find me bashing or drifting or crawling or racing, plus product review videos or how-tos. And today we have a very, very good vehicle here on the channel. This is the Losi DB Pro. There's a TT Pro, also a truck variant of it. And I've been driving this, I've been evaluating it, been doing a lot of things with it. So what I have is 10 things that I think you should consider looking at, evaluating, checking over on the vehicle, or installing before you ever even go out and drive it for the first time. Now let me be clear as we get this whole thing started. These 10 items are not here to deter you from buying this vehicle at all. Every time I do a video like this, someone comes along, oh my gosh, if I have to do these items, then I don't even know if I want to buy this thing. This is any RC. Any RC has something you want to look at, something you want to maybe modify or tweak on a little bit before you drive it, just to protect all that money that you just spent buying this thing. So don't take this negative at all. Take this as helpful, a little bit useful, couple tidbits. That's it. The first item is reinforcing the body. Now, part of the reason I'm guessing why you bought this vehicle is the same reason I did. It looks just so awesome. And what I have noticed is that even in the first runs, the body has enough flop and enough give, especially up here at the front, that it's already starting to chip the paint off right here at the nose, because as it flexes, it hits these tips of these shock mounting screws up here. So I'm going to get this body off. It's a very simple process. You unplug your light harness right back here, and then you simply hit this screw on either side. This whole body, shell, cage, everything all comes off as one. That literally might be the longest screw in all of RC. Now, using this super strong, thick Gorilla Tape, what I'm doing is I'm layering little pieces right in here, right in these corners, and I'm going to fill this whole nose up with tape to protect it from there. I almost want to put something like another layer of plastic in there and have between the layers of tape to help hold it. Unfortunately, so far along these edges of the body, it seems like this has all been pretty strong, pretty reinforced. I may slide a couple pieces of tape in right on the inside here, because that's going to hit that plastic and wear that paint off over time. So I might do that here, both front and rear, just to help. And look, just like that, layers of tape up front, a couple pieces back here on these corners, all that. Not a big deal, right? But it just all helps this body maybe live just a little bit longer. The second item is all around how this ESC is mounted and how you can make it more durable and last longer. It's pretty common on these ESCs to actually break off the little tabs that hold it down. This whole ESC is held on with those two screws and those two tabs on either side. A couple big hits and those get taken out. All of a sudden your ESC's flopping around. Before I even drive it, I'm going to be taking this off, and I'm going to be trying to double-sided tape the whole ESC down, put the screws back in, and that'll help hold that force from that ESC. With the ESC out of the way, you'll see that they have this mounting tray that it sits on, which does not make it very easy to accommodate any kind of double-sided tape there. So I'm going to take this off, and I think I'm going to actually mount the ESC from the underside with some nuts on the top with some longer screws, and then I can also have the adhesive underneath it. So all I did was pop this plastic side piece off, hit it on the grinder real quick, and now we have plenty of room for that ESC to sit down there. I have my 3M double-sided tape there. I've got a longer screw that I'm going to run up through the bottom, and then I can put the ESC straight down all the way down. Item number 3 is expanding and changing this battery mount so that you can fit larger batteries in it straight from the start. Included in the kit are some standoffs and some longer screws that go simply right in under here. This is a very simple operation. 1, 2 screws comes out, these go in their place with the spacers, and then you will have more room in the battery tray for larger batteries. Before you do it, you have somewhere around 25 to 28 millimeters of space. Afterwards, you have in that 38 to 40 millimeters range 40 millimeters by 40 millimeters is a lot of those standard 3S batteries. So now I can do even this 8,000 milliamp hard case 3S from a Wanfi. Fits in there absolutely perfect. No movement, no nothing. You see I removed the foam from the bottom of here, and it will fit in there, and you literally have an 8,000 3S in there running without a problem. That is awesome. Related to getting that big 3S in there is item number 4, which is in the box. The Losi includes a smaller pinion that you can run if you're going to be running 3S a lot. Now, the only reason why they're doing that is to help protect this motor from overheating, so it's something you want to look at. I actually am not personally going to gear down, even though everybody in the world says you should. I'm going to leave it exactly where it is and run 2S and 3S on this buggy, and I'm just going to monitor the temperatures as I do it, but there's more too. Item number 5 is installing some level of a fan on your motor to help keep it cool while you are running those big batteries or maybe different gearing. It does not come with a fan or a heatsink or anything straight out of the box. My local hobby store had this Integy unit, dual fan, simple clip-on, so we're gonna get this one installed. This fan comes with an appropriate plug so that you can actually plug it. Go ahead and plug it straight into your receiver to get power, and the fan simply clips on. And the fan simply clips on just like that. Push down and it is on there. It is adjustable. You can move it wherever you want. Now I'm going to note, if you do not plan to run your lights a lot, you can actually plug this directly into the port that the lights were coming off of. Put it in there, powered up, fans are moving, that is great. The other choice you have is to plug it into the receiver directly itself, and then you have this plug still free for your lights. But that actually gets into our next item. Item number 6 is one of the more complicated ones that we're going to get into so far, and that is relocating this receiver. Really not a fan of how they put this receiver right behind this tire. I'm already getting it dirty. It already has dirt all over it. It already has dirt underneath it. There was a piece of grass stuck in it. So what I want to do is I'm going to relocate it up here to the top of the chassis. It's not a very far location. All the wires will still reach. I might actually rerun, like the ESC wire runs under the chassis brace and it runs under the drive shaft. I might actually run it over on this side so that it's far away from the drive shaft. It'll also allow me easier access to plugging the fans directly into it. But when we do this, one of the things we have to do is go back through the calibration process, which is listed on page 5, in order to recalibrate the AVC inside this receiver. Otherwise, it's going to act all crazy as you try to drive it because the receiver has now been turned on its side. Since it's simply double-sided taped on, all we have to do is just pop it off with a screwdriver, making sure that we're getting in behind it so that we're not damaging it itself. Then you can pull off this double-sided foam. Here we go. Now this is all now back attached up here, zip tied off. You want to make sure all your wires are clear of anything moving, including the servo. So how I did the receiver here, had to zip tie that antenna back. It still goes up through the normal antenna tube. Function is still completely there. Made sure to zip tie all these wires, including my fan wire and everything here, right after the receiver. A lot of because it has this RF interrupter here that will have a lot of weight. I don't want it bouncing around and pulling on these plugs and pulling them out while I'm driving. So zip tie before it, zip tie after it to try to hold everything there. And it looks clean. This whole area down here is cleaned up. Now any dirt or anything will not be immediately going in my receiver. But as I said, since this is an AVC receiver, page 5, we now need to go through these steps. If you don't have the manual on you, you can download it on the Horizon website. For the 7th item here, it is all about this stock servo. So far, it has lasted me, but it is going to die. It is the S614 from Spectrum. They just die. And this servo horn is plastic, and unfortunately, it's a 23-tooth servo and servo horn. I will be upgrading it with my 25 kg servo that I get from Zuske on Amazon. Very budget friendly. Unfortunately, it does come with actually They do come with a nice aluminum locking servo horn. I'm going to try that on there just to make sure, but a lot of folks come into binding issues if the servo horn's not tall enough due to the geometry of this link coming in underneath the servo arm. So I went ahead and bought the Team Losi. This is the TLR 1557. This is their 25 tooth servo horn that matches the same dimensions as the stock servo here. So that way my Zusuke servo and servo horn, I am ready to go. Now I'm not replacing it yet. I am at this point just buying it and sticking it here on the workbench because I know it's going to need it any day. Item number 8 on the list is all around the shocks and the diffs. Now there's a lot of folks that will tell you, go ahead and blow these things apart, go ahead and take them all out, take the diffs apart, center, front, rear, go ahead and do all that straight from the beginning in order to make sure it has the fluid in it that you want and that everything's in good shape. I'm not really going to do that. I'm not going to suggest that because that's a lot of work and the thing looks so cool and it's such a good buggy. You just want to get out and drive it. All right. So all I'm going to say is bring it up, run the diffs back and forth, make sure that you don't hear anything grinding, clicking, making any kind of bad noise before you ever drive it. Same thing with the shocks. Run them up and down. Do you hear any grinding? Does it feel rough? Does it look like they're rebounding appropriate? Is there anything like that? All of that. As long as this is all good and you don't hear any like metal on metal, you don't see any looseness or wobble in them, you don't see anything like that, then you're good and it's fine. Go ahead and proceed. Go ahead and drive it. See how it drives, and then we're going to come back later and we're going to tune the shocks and we're going to tune the diffs based on how we expect to drive. Item number 9 is about this. Look at this. I've only driven this thing, I'd say a handful or less times right now, and you can already see, look at the chunks, look at the big scrape that's here on the rear diff, look at all these grass stains that are on it. Oh, it kind of hurts a little bit, doesn't it? It was so pristine, it was so perfect. What we're going to do though to help this out is we're going to be putting on these RPM front and rear skid plates. So it comes as a twin pack, front and rear, comes with screws and everything to help protect these diffs right here. And because they end up standing a little bit off the chassis, it ends up helping protect some of this other chassis from getting worn so much. Now let me be honest, they're not free, of course. I mean, I think they're 10, 15 bucks, something like that for these skid plates. That chassis, if you want to replace it because you've got it worn down, it's like 115. So let's just say you can buy a few of these RPM skids before you ever have to worry about kind of justifying the cost of a whole chassis. See, the front skid here is the longer one with a little curve to it. The rear one is the short, more squat one. Simple job. Take out old screws, put in new screws, and right back in their spot. Now look at that. Honestly, those look really nice on there. I love the extra support ribs here. That is good. Please note when I first showed you this, I actually had it on backwards. It actually is labeled front for this curved edge to go on the front, not on the rear. I am liking that. That is going to provide a lot of protection back here for the rear of the chassis, a lot of protection for the front of the chassis, and you're going to wear them down. They're 10 or 15 bucks. You just go get another set and call it good. I'm going to sneak in a little bonus item here, not counted in our 10. You will notice if you have this vehicle that there's some holes right here on the rear control arms. And there's the same holes up here on the front control arms. I believe a big fat set screw into both of those will hit the chassis on the bottom and actually work as a droop screw. Now, when I look at typically a droop screw is a little bit more of a racing oriented thing. A lot of the ARMA vehicles have them already. Those screws come in and they hit these little wings out here on the chassis and they help control the downward movement of the control arm. That can help you both from a durability standpoint and from a tuning and setup standpoint as you're racing. What I noticed is on the front, we're already coming down and hitting that with the control arm anyway, so it's already quasi acting like a droop based on the design as it sits. If you put a screw in there, it would help bring it up just a little bit more, but you're not really gaining anything. However, on the rear, we are not touching. So that tells me that the rear is actually shock limited. I don't see anything else binding or any other reason. So the downward travel of the rear suspension is currently that piston bottoming out in the shock body. That's gonna break your shocks and screw up your shocks eventually. So I am going to try to find, in a different video, the right screws that go into these control arms so that I can actually have that be the travel limiter on this suspension instead of the shocks. That will be more than worthwhile and save me some money on parts for replacing these shocks in the long run. The last item, number 10 for us, is you got to put your own plug on there. It comes with the IC5s. They are good connectors for sure, but I have my whole fleet on XT90s. I highly suggest that you go ahead and solder on whichever connector you want. You don't want to be using adapters, especially with a higher performance buggy like this. It is just asking for a fire, so please don't do that. Now, if you're concerned about soldering, maybe you've never done it, maybe you're just not familiar with it, you're not comfortable with it, I have a whole video that I'm going to link over here about how to solder all the popular RC connectors, whether it's the XTs like I run, whether it's a Dean's, a Traxxas, IC5s, EC5s, the Red Cats, I mean, all these kind of things. I'm going to have that link over here so that you can see it. Now, I do appreciate all the support that you have given the channel. I hope this video was useful for you. If you have any other tips or tricks, please provide them down below. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. So thank you and goodbye.